It's the Second Cup of Joe and John with Joe Elvis and John Dwyer.
Greetings, Squire. How you doing, bud? Happy New Year, all that. First of 2023. Out of the chute. Haven't been canceled yet. Still here. Still survived families, holidays, holiday bowl games, weather, travels. Yep. Did you get caught in the airline cluster?
I did not. We timed it out perfectly. I have no idea. I have no, I don't know where I got the good karma, but I'm thankful everything worked out. Yeah. Thanks.
Tragic. All the people that were stranded. I came through the airport on the backside of it where Southwest was the most affected over the holiday travel, and probably a football field's distance in the Nashville airport baggage claim of luggage.
Yeah.
Unclaimed. Who knows where they're, every bag is a life. And it was just unimaginable.
Sew that on a pillow. That's it. Every bag is I'll never look at baggage the same way. I just think that's just dirty crap in there.
No, man, when you work in it, everybody's thing is their most important thing.
Well, that's true, because you're a pilot.
So you have to treat everything as, we left our thing there. No. That's a big deal. That could be like their thing that life doesn't continue without. But we are into 2023.
You're so deep so early.
Is it?
No, this will go off the rails.
This has come together here over about a month of getting our great guest here today.
Twice.
It's just terrific due to my
I can't believe she came back.
My ridiculousness. She talks about her class and her fantasticness. I use words that aren't really words.
There's like two of her because she's everywhere.
I want to rewind of we both were broadcast majors. Where did you intern? What was your first? We all had our first taste. No matter what job you do out there, you have your first taste of, I'm going to go jump into that profession. Where was your first internship?
Very fortunate. My hometown of South Bend, Indiana, the NBC affiliate, WNDU on the Notre Dame campus. And I went there and no credit, no pay, and bus tables in the afternoon at a restaurant I never thought I'd ever work at again when I was 15, and wanted to tell the owner to go shove it. And I'm glad I didn't, because I got the job back. And I got to be with the people I grew up watching. It was surreal. I was very, very lucky. Picked up the dry cleaning for the sportscaster. One of them retired. I got to learn to edit. It wasn't a union shop, so you could touch all the equipment. I was very, very fortunate. And then when they got bought, they built a new set. I got to be like, they needed like the sports guy didn't want to do the run through, so they let me do it. And I was awful. But I made a resume tape that way.
And did you get hired by that station then after your internship?
I worked there part-time. I came home my junior and senior year covering high school basketball. And they asked me one time when the Notre Dame football away games were going, that was before the NBC contract. They said, John, I want you to think about this very clear. I was 19 years old. And they said, do you want to come home from Butler 2.5 hours and do the sportscast on Saturday night when our guys are on the road? And are you kidding me?
Let me think about it. Yes.
Oh my God. No, I got very, very, very lucky.
That's terrific.
So what about you?
Mine was, I went to Western Kentucky University. So mine was at our NBC affiliate, WSMV. W.
Yeah.
And Channel 4, which at the time in 1986 was the number one station, the Chicago Bulls of the era. Nobody touched them. It was pure adrenaline fueled, great talent. And I worked for a guy named Jimmy Carter in Nashville circles, who is just an array of talent. And I was known as Joe the intern. And so that was in the days where people would pick up the intercom, Joe to the intern to the studio, Joe to the intern.
Give me a coffee.
Because I either had to get lunch, run tapes, or do something silly like that. And so, but again, a great experience, because our guest today was part of that powerhouse team. And I learned more from just watching that you could ever learn in any classroom ever. And today is going to be just a great one.
Hey, we know people. Let's take a spin through Joe and John's Rolodex.
Time now for Deep Thoughts with Demetria Kalodimos.
Learn how to spell it. It's Dementia, California.
Demetria Kalodimos graces the studio of the Second Cup of Joe.
And John.
Demetria, welcome. This is always a big day for me. As John mentioned in his growing up watching you, then at one point getting to work on the same team with you and still watch you just excel at what you do. You're the best at it. And we look forward to hearing more about what you've had going on the in-between since Channel 4 and where you sit today. So grateful to have you here this morning. Thank you.
Well, it's a delight to see you guys again. And I kid you not, you're in my phone as Joe, the intern.
That's what it lists. That was, I remember, we'll
Well, there weren't even cell phones back then.
No.
So how did that?
You were talking
I'm not
about
letting you go with this.
you were talking about the pager too. You know,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
how we got, the word out that you had a phone call. And one of the most amazing things is, you ever watch CNN? You see the British guy, Richard Quest.
Sure.
He was an intern at
No
Channel
kidding.
4.
Wow.
And we used to make him page because he had this regal voice, So we'd make up phone calls just so he'd say,
So you could hear.
Joe the intern, line 6.
That's the kind of where you hit the 6 and 7 or whatever it was, and it goes through the entire building, so everyone has to hear it. And it would be stupid things on a Friday. You would hear some recorded message or whatever, but it was always, that's how you have it, how you did it.
And the perennial joke was to get someone to go hello, and they'd be on building wide,
No.
So it became at Channel 4, every single page started with to make sure that no one was pranking you, right?
Well, one of my first memories was walking in overwhelmed because I'd been watching you, Dan, Charlie Mack, and Bill Hall were the A-team lineup at that time. And here was right next to, I worked on a show called Channel 4 Magazine, which was Charlie Chase and Lorianne Crook. And this was before This Week in Country Music, their very successful weekly show started from that Channel 4 Magazine show. And in the office next to it was this wall-to-wall, top-to-bottom Bruce Springsteen wall cover off the Born in the USA era. And so I thought, man, who is this? Well, here comes this just absolutely smoking cute Demetria Kalodimos' office right next to me. And so I thought, man, I'd love her even more with the big Bruce thing. Let's start from the beginning tell the story of how you got to Nashville and that first interview.
Well, it's funny. We were just talking about severe weather and like extreme cold. The winter of 1983 in central Illinois, where I was out of grad school, I was working in television in Champaign, Illinois, and it was brutally cold. It was the minus 16, that sort of thing. And that's the day that they called me down for an interview in Nashville. And I really had never even seen Nashville. I mean, I expected everyone at the gas station to be in rhinestones, right? They called me down, and I was going to do a sneaky. You guys know how this is. You weren't going to tell your current employer that you were going
Never
down.
did.
Never. So I was going to do a sneaky fly down there, do the interview, be back for the 10, right? By the time I got back from this interview to the little tiny airport in Champaign, Illinois, every door in my car was glued shut, iced shut. And I was stranded. The airport was not close to the station.
Oh, boy.
But I believe one of my good friends took one of our fleet. We had an amazing news car fleet, which included
Those escorts were awesome.
ours included a Chevette and a Le Car. Nothing matched. Yeah. Someone came down, rescued me, brought me back. And that was the only year until recently that Illinois had a decent football team. We went to the Rose Bowl. We were undefeated in the Big Ten. So it was really important for me to be there.
Yeah.
that
Tony
particular night.
Eason, maybe,
Tony Eason,
would be the
Champagne
quarterback.
Tony.
See? Yeah, he played
Mike
for the
White
Patriots.
was the coach.
Mike White was, the coach.
Yeah.
That's right. Good. They've sucked ever since.
Absolutely.
You left. Yeah.
Ever since.
Yeah, there's you want to connect
So-
dots.
I never thought in a million years that I'd get this job, because I'm really dating myself. But the way you got jobs back then was you sent out your resume tape, which was the size of a shoebox,
Mhm.
and you'd hope and pray that someone would return it to you, because those things were like $30.
Yeah.
And when you're making $100 a week, $30 is sizable. So when I got a phone call from Nashville, I was just flabbergasted and came down, did the interview. Dan Miller and then news director Bob Selwyn took me to lunch at Dalt's. I'll
Yep,
never forget
Sure,
it.
on White Bridge.
Right there on
Yeah,
White Bridge.
yeah.
And Miller would later tell me that what clinched it for him was when I did not take their recommendations for what to order for lunch.
You were
I did
kind of
my
you were
own
a little
thing.
independent. You
I was
did your own thing.
independent. I
Yeah.
was bold. I was like, no, this is what I'm going to eat.
What did you think of the station at that point? Dan Miller is you and Dan together were the Lennon McCartney of Nashville news. Dan was already hugely known and successful in his own right, and clocked in at least 6'6", 6'7". The guy's a tall guy.
Yeah.
Did you just kind of gel instantly with him?
I didn't even realize how big a deal it was to be sitting next to him until a few weeks in. And I remember when I went back to Champaign and said I had gotten the job, one of the old crusty engineers was like, "That's WSM. Do you have any idea? This is a huge station." I really didn't. I hadn't even done research. Dumb me. But we did. We gelled pretty quickly. And the best way to describe it is the big brother I never had. We truly had that kind of relationship. We had the same humor. We shared the same, sometimes rude sense of humor.
Which is helpful to be in a newsroom because you have to cut the tension. You have to. People don't understand. I used to say that our sports office, whenever we hired somebody, I would say, this is not a locker room. Okay, we're professional. That went out the window. It was just a country. It was just a club, right?
Yeah.
In the newsroom, and you can't tell those stories until later.
Right.
Of all the pranks and things you would say to each other. Yeah.
But we got when you sit next to someone in that sort of a situation for that many years, you really get that sort of telepathy where you know what the next person is going to do, say, or whatever. And we got to the point where if I so much as moved my finger in a weird way, he'd be like, "What?" We could actually know something was wrong with the other one. We had a lot of hand signals. We had a lot of inside jokes, and it was just tremendous.
It was in the years before political correctness, if you will. People smoked in a newsroom like crazy.
Did you smoke?
Oh, yes, I smoked.
We all have.
I hate to admit it. I smoked until the day that they, and Mike Kettering, our wonderful leader, announced on a Friday that on Monday, the newsroom was going to be smoke-free. Nice way to warn everyone.
It's called cold turkey.
Literally, everyone was having a nervous breakdown.
Oh my gosh!
But that's what got me to quit eventually. But when I first got there, Miller smoked, but he wasn't smoking cigarettes anymore. He smoked those cheapo Swisher Sweets.
Oh, yeah.
Cigars.
Worse.
And if you look back at
backwards
old air checks, like during the break, he would puff on the thing, and when we come back, he'd be doing this number. Yeah. And you could still see sort of a cloud of smoke rising between us.
Soft focus.
Yeah.
That was fine. I'm going to ask the most trite question, but I have never read anything. I've read a bunch about you through the years, but did anybody approach you when you worked in Champaign, or even before that? Maybe one of your professors. Did you major in business or media? Journalism.
Yeah.
Okay. Did they ever say, first of all, you're going to have to not go by Demetria Kalodimos?
Oh, yeah. My first job, I didn't go by Demetria Kalodimos.
Breaking news.
Who were you?
Do we have a breaking news stinger? This is good stuff. I did not know that.
Add the stinger.
Yeah.
Beth Smith.
No. And this is actually a not so funny story because they gave me about 5 minutes to decide what this new identity would be. I went by Demetria K.
How do you spell K? K-A-Y?
It was K-A-Y-E. Like,
of course it was.
Like it would look real, right? It was such a phony baloney name.
Sure.
But the funny thing was, and I kid you not, the sports guy was Mark Shanowski and my co-anchor was Bruce Jakubowski.
Oh, well, that's
And those guys didn't have to change their names.
Of course not. They're guys.
They're guys.
Yeah, they're guys. They didn't have to do that.
And they used to call themselves the Ski Patrol. But I was like, I can't change it to Demetria. I won't know who, to turn my head.
Right.
But when I came to Nashville, they assumed that I was going to still go by that alias. And I said, really? I can use my own? And the sentimental part of this story, gentlemen, is that when my family came over from Greece, my grandfather at Ellis Island, they Americanized a lot of complicated names. And he was like, no way.
Sure.
We're not changing it because Kalo means good and Demos means like people, like democracy. So good person.
Oh.
Would you change it? Come
Oh,
on.
yeah, you can't make that up.
No,
that's good.
That's a great story. Demetria K could still be your rap name if that's another.
That's
that you
true.
go down.
About the only thing she hasn't done.
Wait.
Dan Miller passed away at the Masters. Where were you when you heard that news?
I was, well, when I actually got the news, I was asleep and the phone rang and it was Karen, his wife. And I honestly, you know, when people say that you think you're dreaming something, I really did think I was dreaming that phone call. And when it turned real, I jumped into the car in my pajamas and went straight over to their house. And I was probably still there hours later, but I just felt it's so important because I knew what he would want better than anyone else in that building. And I knew what he wouldn't want. So the day that we crafted that coverage, and I hope you guys or anyone in broadcasting never has to do this for a dear and trusted partner. But the day we crafted that coverage, I felt like we did what he would want. And one of the things that people still talk about, I said, let's just go into his office and, you know, pan around his horrible, messy, sloppy workplace and just kind of give people a sense of who this guy was. And we did. I described his office as the camera went around it, and it was heartbreaking. But it was also something that people still talk about. And to their credit, the folks at WSMV at the time closed the door, locked that office, and kept it as is for a solid year.
I remember that because you were just looking there, like you would at
Jersey
Graceland.
Mike's napkins still there.
Still there.
You know, all the stuff that he was working on.
He had a heart attack at the Masters and passed away. And Dan had left Channel 4 and gone out and worked with Pat Sajak when Pat Sajak started his show, and then ended up coming back again. And so truly a Nashville icon. And it was just a great era. And Charlie McAlexander was just as irreverent as could be in the sports department. And Bill Hall was Bill Hall. So it's amazing how you didn't put that team together, but that team came together and was the team. You know,
and I give a lot of credit to the tradition of that station, starting with a gentleman, I guess I didn't even know him, named Elmer Alley. They really looked for certain people as if they were casting a play, right? They were casting a group of characters. They didn't want all the same folks, right? They didn't want the same look, the same sound, the same attitude, whatever. And they were really, really successful in putting together people that clicked.
Yeah.
You talked about Sajak and Miller. I mean, they were hysterical together. And a lot of people don't realize this. There had been a vow, like, if I ever make it, if I'm ever Johnny Carson, you are my Ed McMahon. That was their little joke with each other. And sure enough, they got to play that out years later. But I always thought if the chairs were reversed and Miller was the straight man interviewer and Sajak was the Ed McMahon, that show might have taken off.
That might have worked. Yeah. Interesting.
Common sense would tell you not to look to Joe and John for this, but time for life lessons from Joe and John.
Are you mesmerized by these things?
She has no idea what she's gotten herself into. What button are they going to hit next over there?
What are those buttons for?
You know, just to put a bow on that, the respect, and I think news market says this, but I think it's true, is that I think the respect, there's, healthy competition. I mean, you know that. We were all looked up and at the monitors, and we did this and we did that, and
we were
we're always first. We kicked their butt. And that story went better, but the community and I remember going to the service and just seeing it was just everybody, and it was everybody from every station. In that respect, that may not happen in every market, but I think if there was a testament, he'd be like, well, that's pretty cool, And I think everybody, we play hard, we work hard, but then we play hard, and for the most part, all those relationships. Because nobody says, oh, you didn't go to WSMV because, you went there because there was a job opening.
Sure.
And those were the call letters, right? I always worked at bad stations because those sports jobs always open. They just, I have to get out of here. So I was always, stopping the bleeding, putting the thumb in the dike, and then I moved on, So, but I thought that was a great testament to have everybody just, the respect was palatable.
And I'm going to say it, they renamed the driveway, the hill at Nob Hill, Miller Lane. But I'd still like to see a Dan Miller something in this town.
Oh, he's well earned it.
with his
Well
name
earned
on it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great?
When we talk about life lessons, you know, to be a journalist in TV and through our era of film and then going to 3/4 and then beta and then tapeless and all that. I mean, there's a lot of things that have happened that didn't happen from 1955 to 80. It was basically all the same thing, right? To reinvent yourself and stay relevant and to stay ahead of the curve. Was that ever a challenge to you? Did you, I mean, how did you continue to just, you know, because I think your work ethic is well known, but you also have to keep up with the times.
Oh, certainly. I mean, I can remember the day they brought in the word processors, the computers.
Mhm.
And we were like, you won't get my manual typewriter out of my cold dead hand, you know? And I would still love to have one of those because we had the large prompter size print on our manual typewriters. Wouldn't that be cool to still
That'd
have?
be better, yeah.
But I mean, we had to learn that. We had to learn from tape to tape editing to this, whatever they call it, non-linear editing, digital.
I still don't know.
And you curse it. You know, you curse it left and right.
No, you
and,
cry. You
yeah,
cry
you
because I
cry
can't
or
figure it
find-
out.
Find a really great engineer, you know,
Or a great
yeah,
intern.
or, there you go.
Because kids know how to do it.
And you know, I'm not a gadgety person. I don't love. I mean, I never had a Palm, whatever that was.
On
or-
Pilot.
Yeah, they forced me to get a cell phone, but you know, you learn what you have to. But the basics of what we do are the same. And when I tell students, and I've had the opportunity to do some teaching the past year, when I tell them that writing is the single most important factor to the job, the people are in disbelief. But really, that's all we do all day long is write.
I would tell people what's the best advice I would have liked to have heard. Get to know the English language. It's not hard. And you know, and we had copy come out of people that have, you know, graduate degrees and so forth. And I'm like, this copy is awful.
Yeah.
It's full of landmines. It's
And
like,
read
how
it
did you
out
even-
loud.
How do you get out of school?
Yeah.
You know? Okay. Now we're
There you go.
Now we're going there.
There he goes.
the get off my lawn speech was the over under was 12 minutes. And I think we made it
You
just
did it.
over.
Demetria, you've even back then you have coincided with the filming station. Boy, did you think that property was at the right place at the right time that when
Yes,
you got it? Now?
I was a genius. Of course
Jeez.
I knew.
Wolf.
Not at all.
Holy
I mean,
cow.
I looked at a ratty little cinder block box on the corner of 8th Avenue and Lee Street. And I used to get my hair cut over there. So I'd take a left turn at that point all the time. And I was looking for a way to get all my, you know, I dabble in filmmaking. At that point in time, it was strictly a hobby. But I was getting more and more stuff in our garage, in our basement. And my husband was like, you know, we got to move this stuff. And I was looking for a place where I could get my toys out of the house. Right. And that place came up for sale and I made an offer on it. And I thought, this guy, not in a million years is he going to take this offer. And I was fortunate enough to go on a vacation with my sister who worked for Oprah. I got to go on one of those Oprah killer holidays with her.
Oh my.
Yeah,
wow.
Unbelievable. But while I was gone on this Oprah fest, I told
Did you
Verlin-
find out looking underneath the seat of the anchor chair or something? Was there any good story about that? No. Okay. Just checking.
No.
Okay.
But I told my husband, I said, sure enough, I said, with my luck, this guy's going to say yeah to the offer and I'll be overseas and you won't
Now
be able
what?
to act on it.
Yeah.
Right. But I got all my ducks in a row. And when I came home, my husband said, yeah, we just bought that building.
That's tremendous.
Yeah.
And where it is at 8th and Lee used to be a dumpy part of town, sort of. And now our new convention center and all the gazillion-dollar hotels are around it. You're in one of the hottest piece of real estates in Nashville. What goes on in there? I remember Prima Donna was one of your first documentaries. Talk about how your evolution has come into your side projects, your documentaries, and it's still going now.
Well, the cool thing about my building, and I invite you guys to come down because you do need to check it out. It's an old gas station.
Mhm.
It's an old Gulf station that anyone in their right mind would have razed, you know, to the ground because it was pretty hard to bring that thing back to life. But sure enough, all the parts were there once we peeled back the layers of cinder block and stuff. So we did this long-term renovation of this building. And we got really lucky because maybe 20 feet more and we would have been wrecked for eminent domain because they were making the convention center and those sorts of things. So what goes on down there now, the 2-car garage where you would have pulled in to get your oil changed, that's my little studio,
Okay.
believe it or not. And we've got what I refer to as the last green space in downtown Nashville. We actually have a courtyard where we have some events. We've got a very small screening room with some old funky theater chairs. Everything in there is reused or recycled. So I'm proud to say that we got a historic preservation award from the city some years back. I don't think that's going to help me lower my tax bill, which is ultimately what will probably get me out of there. I don't want to get serious, but that has been a tough thing for people that have small properties down there, because
taxes going up.
Taxes are ridiculous. And sooner or later, you just got to say, I can't afford this anymore. Sure, make a parking lot out of something that was really unique and cool.
It's beautiful. And what do you have in the works now? Are there continuous documentaries going on, or do you have a direction that you want to take this?
Well, I did one during COVID, just sitting around. I had a shoebox full of really interesting old stuff that I had done.
You had time on your hands during
a little bit. And so I put something together there, but it's my Nashville banner workspace now. Oh. So that's where I do all my video editing. I just finished a podcast myself.
Talk about that. This is brand new for you.
Brand new for me. And it just hit, in fact, Thursday will be a new release, a 9-part true crime podcast. And the story took place in Normal, Normal, Illinois.
Normal, Illinois.
Yeah. Home of Illinois State University. Anyway, the short version is a 1975 murder there on the lawn of a sorority house, and it's never been solved. So my niece, who was looking around, she was a journalism student looking around for stories, was like, hey, we can do something with this. She found an old retired Chicago cop who's like right out of Central Casting. He's fantastic. And here we are 9 episodes later. I'm not going to tell you that we solved the case, but we certainly went through the files with a fine-tooth comb, and it turned out to be a story with a lot of twists and turns.
What's
Carol's Last Christmas.
Carol's Last Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And is that the name? What's the podcast name?
That's the podcast.
It is
Carol's
the podcast. Terrific.
Yeah.
Did you, when you got involved with this, you were still working and doing, daily newscasts and going through that grind. I've got to believe this true storytelling, when you can do it in long verses, it's therapeutic. It's all the things that, not bashing local TV, but they just don't give you the time to do it.
Absolutely. That was the whole impetus for the whole thing, was this is what I really love to do. And my 9 to 5 or 11 to 2 or whatever, your shift is in TV was just not allowing it anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started Genuine Human. I said, heck, I can do this. And this is what I really love to do. And so, many, many losses later, because you never make money making a documentary, you put all your cookie jar into it. But I've got some things I'm proud of.
Excellent.
Rapid fire, rapid fire.
If you could see her face now.
She's like, you guys.
What is
all that's missing on
this is how you not do a podcast. Guys, I'm so thankful we're a guest here because my podcast is so much better than this amateur hour.
That's great.
Quick rapid fire questions. Just anything top of your head, whatever you think. Go, Joe.
Favorite restaurant in town? One you like hitting a lot?
I'm going to say cilantro lately. My husband's a Mexican food freak. We go there. And the other day we remarked, hey, we really like this.
Is that Green Hills? Where am I talking?
No, it's on 8th Avenue.
8th Avenue?
Yeah.
Okay. If dead or alive, if you could have anybody at dinner, a couple of guests.
Oh, I've already planned this out very well.
Okay.
Martin Short would sit on one side of me.
Mm-hmm. Who
Mike Myers would sit on the other side of me. I'd have Jack Black in the room, and I'd never eat. I'd just hyperventilate and laugh the whole time.
You must like to laugh. If that's is that your secret?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Minus your fantastic husband, Verlin Thompson, who's just a great musician. If you haven't heard Verlin's work, verlinthompson.com, check it out. What are you listening to? What's in that CD player or on that Apple right now?
And I should say CD player, because that's another thing you'll pull out of my cold dead hands, right? I've got like 700 CDs loaded up in like 4 different players at my house. And I love to just hit shuffle.
Yeah, me too.
Because you would not believe the variety. I mean, I can go from Greek bouzouki music to opera to, just old
Steely
time.
Dan.
Love Steely Dan. I mean, I absolutely love music. I was an undergrad music major.
What'd
So
you play?
flute.
Ooh, is that still active?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I
Damn,
mean,
we should
I'm
have
not
had you
going to
bring
go
the-
out there and
should have
perform, but
played
you
some
know.
Jethro
You didn't bring it
Tull.
with you?
Jethro Tull, I know every single note, needless to say.
Isn't that you'd have to affirm that you actually, because somebody'd say, well, play something. And you'd say, okay, here's Aqualung.
Yeah. Here's thick as a brick.
Next question would be name something in your youth that you got away with.
Oh boy. Riding my bike solo way too far away from home.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone had a bike. That's how you got around. And your parents really, there was no GPS or a cell phone. They had no idea where you were. But I was like deep, deep, deep into the woods once on my bike. And I thought, this is just not going to end good.
Right.
Fortunately, it did.
So you're back.
Yeah, I'm back.
What advice would you give your 18-year-old self now?
Relax.
Yeah.
Seriously, I've been very tightly wound. Can you tell? For a long, long time. And I was extremely concerned about, was I going to get into college? What was I going to do in college? Was I going to succeed? And, you know, relax and kind of assess the landscape.
We hear that from 90% of the guests.
Really?
I wouldn't have taken myself so seriously. I would have given things more time. We all set guidelines and deadlines on ourselves. Like you probably had to be in a major market by this year and by here and stuff. But most of the overall picture is to step back and relax.
Well, you know, but I'm going to take issue with that because I had to, you know, put call letters on the resume. I was driven. I missed a lot of fraternity sorority dances during my junior, senior years. I gave up, you know, sacrificed, if you will. I did make up for Sundays and Thursdays. I promise. I was, you know, doing the bar time, whatever. But if you weren't that driven, then you wouldn't be here. So it's hard to say, of course, you're going to relax and have a balanced life. And that wasn't, to me, an option.
Agreed. And I can recall when all my friends were graduating, when we all graduated undergrad and they were getting apartments and jobs and all this other stuff, I immediately went into graduate school. And there I was, a student again, living in a dorm. Yeah. And at the time I was like, this is horrible. I'm lame, you know, but I did end up, I had my master's degree by the time I was 23. And that's served me well because, as crazy as it is, as qualified as you can be, a lot of institutions of higher learning will not let you teach there unless you have an advanced degree.
Right.
That's correct.
Final question, because your background since in school and maybe even before that, I don't know if high school newspaper or whatever. Did you play sports in high school, by the way?
No.
Cheerleader?
You know what? I was cheerleader for 1 year. And then I was drum major of the marching band, which was way cooler.
Whoa! You got to,
Thank
did you get to
you.
wear the big fuzzy hat and all? I mean, all
Yeah,
that.
we
Or
didn't
what'd
have
you
a
do?
big fuzzy.
Okay.
We had the worst band uniforms. I would have loved the big fuzzy. We looked like cops. we wore blue suits.
Everybody break
and
it
like
up. Move to the
a
exits.
CPD looking cop. It did have like a dead chicken on top of it. This like horrible thing, but
I played the drums in high school. We looked like idiots in our ascot and our other thing we had and the white shoes
yeah.
that had to be white. And so
did you have a beret?
I did.
The drum line always had a beret.
It was great.
But the question was, what was the question?
Did I play
If you couldn't,
sports?
if you could not go into media or documentary making and so forth, what would be another career that you've kind of thought, man, if I could maybe step back, I'll try that. Is there anything else?
You know what? If I were actually have studied it, I think I would have been a researcher,
Oh,
like in a laboratory trying to discover something.
Okay.
And which has a lot of parallels.
Yeah, I was
going to
say what you do
investigate.
now. Yeah.
Right.
Because you want to get it right. You want the details.
You'd have to transplant my brain with someone that could do, you know, math and
Right.
science and that sort of thing. But every time I've been involved in a story where I had to go in and stuff was bubbling in beakers and stuff, I just, you know, my blood pressure rises. I think it's cool.
that's nice.
Time now for Deep Thoughts with Demetria Kalodimos.
Joe, meteorologists need to be handsome. Oh, wait, apparently they don't. Put in your application anytime.
Wow. Ouch.
My dream was to always be on the set with you. I thought that would be just the best thing of maybe you'd get back in TV and it would just work out. I did a short stint at News Channel 5, they're just absolutely tremendous over there. And maybe one day still, because talk about your new direction here. You have teamed up again with News Channel 5. The stories are on newschannel5.com. You can see them. You're also on the show itself. What made you come back?
Well, from time to time, I'll be on. A lot of times people are like, oh, you're going to be on Channel 5 every night. I'll tune on at 6. And it's like, no, sorry to disappoint. Not so much. But tremendous opportunity to not only expose the work that we're doing at the Nashville Banner, the new news nonprofit that's totally dedicated to local news. But I mean, what's not to like?
Yes.
And Channel 5 is the channel 4 of today.
Yes, it is.
They own, I love my friend Bob Mueller. I love Dennis Ferrier and my folks at 17, and I still have friends at 4. But let's face it, they took the playbook and ran with it, and they are a fantastic news operation. So it's been crazy to be back in a studio though, because boy, they have the really sophisticated robotic cameras that like slide across. It's not only just moving side to side; they move like people.
Yeah,
that was a little scary. But it's been fun. But
half the time, that's how I knew I was coming back on. The camera's coming my way. I was like, oh, crap.
You see them do this little rehearsal, this dress rehearsal dance ahead of time. I mean, it's kind of creepy.
Talk about the stories that you're doing. I enjoyed the story about glass.
Thank you.
I thought that was tremendous. It's a story about how much glass is in our city. So run that through your head right now. Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, you look at the
Just
skyline.
look at the skyline. Yeah.
And I mean, obviously it's the aesthetic of the moment. Everyone likes tall and shiny, but we kind of stepped back and said, how long will these materials last? Will it go out of style? We all go through a neighborhood that we thought was the coolest and greatest, and now it looks vintage. And sooner or later, vintage gets popular again. But there are a lot of considerations, heating and heat loss and cooling down in our terrible summers here. So it was interesting to talk to a variety of people, architecture types and other people about glass.
Joe and John have come to the fork in the road.
Demetria, everything seemed worked out for you. You graduated, you had a job in Champaign. In '84, you come to Channel 4 and were there for decades, and now you're able to do this. Everything's gone well in your life. But forks in the road, is there a decision or a job or something that maybe it's a job or a way that you didn't take? Is there something? It could be in your youth. It could have been last week.
Oh, everyone's got those, rear view mirror stories, right? The thing that we probably could have done. I had a great one actually, and I forget the year, but ABC was first experimenting with all overnight news, where someone was going to have to read
And the
news.
LRB started that with the
NBC News Overnight,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I loved.
Yeah, I
it
did
was
too.
kind of an irreverent show, but ABC was starting something like that, and they were calling people all over the country apparently to interview. And I talked to them for a while and decided not to do that for whatever reason, because I loved Nashville and I really loved where I was at the moment. And here's the kicker. Guess who got the job? Anderson Cooper.
Whatever happened to him?
Yeah, I know. And that's the last we heard of the guy. So, I mean, professionally, you could say, oh, that was a loser. That was not a good decision. But I think
to hire Anderson Cooper, you would have been much better. Correct.
By and large, I think the decision to stay put in Nashville long term was a good one. Has been a good one and continues to be.
I saw this on the Book of Faces, and I thought it's interesting for the folks that listen to our show. Old Nashville, just maybe pop out after I read these, what some of these places meant. Sunset Grill, Rotiers, The Cooker, Greer Stadium, F. Scott's Fitzgerald's Restaurant, The Jazz Bar, The Gold Rush, Family Wash, Mad Platter, Mario's, Ireland's, 328 Performance Hall, Davis Kid Books, Starwood Amphitheater, Gerst House, Fifth Quarter, Melrose Theater,
Bellmead Theater,
Bellmead Theater, Harvey's, Cast or Not, Kane Sloan, Dancing in the District,
Tower Records.
Yeah. And boy, is that not the backdrop of our lives growing up here in Nashville? It's so much change has come on. And the question leads to that era of stuff. When Channel 4 ended for you, where was your head at? Were you in a happy, aggressive, like, I'm in a new direction? Was it like a bad breakup of, I remember when I left radio, when radio ended for me, I was kind of like, I'm not ready to end, and I got a lot more to offer. But at the same time, I turned away and said, that's all behind me now.
It was, it was shocking and it was not fun. But I think it was wise to not jump on the first thing that came around, because I probably could have been back on another television station doing the same old thing. And I thought, hey, there's some reason why you're making this major pivot at this point in time. So I kind of assessed the landscape again and thought, what can I do? I knew I wasn't going to just sit back or go to Cabo like some people I know.
That was a dig.
Little dig at the tan
well, that's
man
because
in
I'm
the room.
flaking. I'm down to my 5th layer of skin.
Put a shirt
Burned the first 2 off. Oh, my shirt's on, Joe. I don't do this topless.
I knew I was going to devote more time to my longer form stuff and whatever form that took. And then the opportunity to develop the banner and kind of meld that with service to the actual community instead of just producing something for my own satisfaction and putting it on the shelf. So I think, all in all, it worked out really well.
Terrific.
Yeah, well, and Joe and I have similar breakups, and when he was reciting the way he left, I feel the same way, and there's a part of me, I'm still hurt. I mean, I'm just and my wife, she goes, there's just a hole in my heart, and time heals most wounds, not all, but I do believe that if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. And the one thing I'll say about you doing and pivoting what you did and taking your time and being deliberate is that the one thing, if you're in this town long enough and you do it well enough, that your reputation and to say, your name, I mean, you are people don't need to know your last name. Okay. It doesn't have to be K. They know it's Demetria. And it's nice to know that still means something in the turnover that we have. When somebody comes to Nashville and they say, I got here in 2016, I'll be in they have no reference point of anybody that was on TV before that. So that has to make you feel redeemed or validated, if you will. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Without an ego.
Absolutely. I mean, I have always said since that whole thing went down, I feel like I'm in a massive group hug every day. I mean, coming over here,
Sure.
pumping gas. This was great, though. I wanted to keep this for you guys. Coming over here, pumping gas. Someone said, Ann Holt. I was like,
that's a good one.
I mean, I'll still get that. I'll get Ruth Ann Leach. But my point is,
That's
my point
not
is,
the answer I was going to hear.
there will never be, that will never happen again. Because no one will ever be in your home 3 times a day for 30 years. And it's important that you watch them every day for 30 years. You will never have that connection between a local personality, even radio. There are too many choices now.
Yes. And you were
Too
the
many
longest standing anchor in the history of WSMV.
I was, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, and I got to ask you this quick, because occasionally I'll get this at a Kroger. They'll be like, hey, I watch you every morning. And I'm like, well, if you do, you're my neighbor and you're looking in my window and you're creeping me out.
Exactly.
Because that's the only way you're seeing me every morning. But people probably still think you're right. I mean, that delayed response of viewership and loyalty.
I know. And I it's hard to say, I never work mornings in my life.
Right.
Who you watching, But no, exactly. The funny thing is when they're tongue-tied, did I go to school with you? Do you go to church with me? Are you my teacher?
Mm-hmm.
They know you, but they're not exactly sure how. But they know the voice too.
You got to wear shades.
We've kind of hit on it. What's bright about our future? Your future. What gets you up? What gives you hope? Without hope, we have nothing. And I know part of that is you've talked about your writing, your creativity, stories that are a little deeper. You've brought back the Nashville banner. Maybe draw a quick little circle about folks that never knew what the Nashville banner was to begin with. Why is this important? And where can people get this?
Long, long ago, when Nashville had two newspapers, there was the Morning Tennessean and the Afternoon Banner.
What? Two newspaper
Two
town?
newspapers.
Crazy.
And everyone was the better for it. You know, it was great
best.
competition,
It was the best.
super journalism. The Banner closed, and someone's going to correct me here. I believe it was 98.
98.
Yeah. And that was sudden too. It was like end of an era, boom. And we are resurrecting the Nashville Banner in name and hopefully in spirit as a serious news outlet. But it's going to be, you know, web-based. Sorry, nothing on your driveway on Sunday mornings, but we're going to be dedicated to Nashville, Davidson County, and also state government. So many resources. I mean, half the reporters in the country have disappeared in the last 10 years. And things like the congressman up in New York, who apparently has done none of the things he said he's done. I mean,
the liar was John Lovitz.
Yeah. Had local news, had local news been alive and well, that story would have never, you know, that guy would have never been elected. So we see proof of the need for this daily. And we're hoping that we have a newsroom of 10 people and a support staff of 5. And in the spirit and model of something called the Texas Tribune, which has done this successfully for a dozen years now, real serious, reliable, trustworthy journalism is coming back to markets where these things launch. And Nashville should be no different.
This is still in the works, hiring people. Is it on? Is there a spot folks can see it now?
He's looking for a job. Is what I'm just saying. I'm just going to say right now.
NashvilleBanner.com
Okay.
is alive and well. And I'm hoping in fact, when I leave this studio today, we will have an organizational meeting. I mean, 2023, you will see us up, running in earnest and all over the place. And you'll see my stuff on Channel 5.
Excellent. I've already signed up. You can go to that website now and sign up with your email to get stuff in the future, which I highly recommend.
Right.
That'll be terrific.
And this isn't a journalism show. We, full disclosure, Main Street Media is trying to fill that void, and does fill that void with weeklies and hyperlocal journalism.
Yes,
because it is needed.
And in the outlying communities that we're not initially going to be dedicated to. So Main Street Media is definitely filling that niche in the Gallatins, in the, you know, Sumner County, Wilson County. Those are those places that we aren't going to concentrate on as much.
Terrific.
Well stated. Well, it's gone by, and I really appreciate it. And we had this booked a few weeks ago, and there was a little miscommunication, shocking between among communicators. But thank you for coming back to the building again, and we wish you nothing but success. You are a Nashville treasure. I know that you didn't move here in '84 thinking that's what you wanted to do, but it's great that your reputation and your hard work and the quality of work endures. And that's a void that certainly is missed. And Nashville's better to have you here.
Well, thank you. And coming from the two of you, I really, really appreciate the kind words and hope to return the favors.
Oh, that would be wonderful. We will always be available here on The Second Cup of Joe.
And John.
It's The Second Cup of Joe and John as their guests expound on any and all topics within the realm of decency. Want to be a sponsor? Let a TV and radio guy help build your business. Email the show, secondcupofjoeandjohn@gmail.com.